Hi, Bryce.
Hi, Marilyn.
I had to figure out how to turn the recording off. There it is.
I completely forgot since I came in rushing. All right, let us restart that. But thank you so much, Marilyn.
Okay.
All right, chapter 12, 1 to 9. Marilyn will read verses 1 to 9. Bryce will read 10 to the end. And then chapter 13. Who wants to read chapter 13, 1 to 9 and 10 to the end? George, 1 to 9, and I saw Linda's hand, 10 to the end. Okay. All right. So everybody got it covered? Marilyn and Bryce, and then George and Linda. All right. Let us begin, please.
Okay. The Lord said to Abram, leave your country, your relatives, and your father's home, and go to a land that I'm going to show you. I will give you many descendants, and they will become a great nation. I will bless you and make your name famous so that you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, but I will curse those who curse you. And through you, I will bless all nations. When Abram was 75 years old, he started out from Haran as the Lord had told him to do, and Lot went with him. Abram took his wife Sarai, his nephew Lot, and all the wealth and all the slaves they had acquired in Haran, and they started out for the land of Canaan. When they arrived in Canaan, Abram traveled through the land until he came to the sacred tree of Moed, the holy place at Shechem, and at that time the Canaanites were still living there in the land. The Lord appeared to Abram and said to him, this is the country that I'm going to give to your descendants. Then Abram built an altar there to the Lord who had appeared to him. After that, he moved south to the hill country, east of the city of Bethel, and set up his camp between Bethel on the west and Ai on the east. There he also built an altar and worshiped the Lord. Then he moved on from place to place, going toward the southern part of Canaan.
Thank you. Go ahead, Bryce.
There was a famine in the land, so Abram went down to Egypt to stay there for a while because the famine in the land was severe. When he was about to enter Egypt, he said to his wife Sarah, look, I know what a beautiful woman you are. When the Egyptians see you, they will say, this is his wife. They will kill me, but you will live. Please stay, you are my sister, so it will go well for me because of you, and my life will be spared on your account. When Abram entered Egypt, the Egyptians saw that the woman was very beautiful. Pharaoh's officials saw her and praised her to Pharaoh. So the woman was taken to Pharaoh's household. He treated Abraham well because of her, and Abram acquired flocks and herds, male and female donkeys, male and female slaves, and camels. But the Lord struck Pharaoh and his household with severe plagues because of Abram's wife Sarah. So Pharaoh sent for Abram and said, what have you done to me? Why didn't you tell me that she was your wife? Why did you say that she's my sister, so that I could took her as my wife? Now here is your wife. Take her and go. Then Pharaoh gave his men orders about him, and they sent him away with his wife and all he had.
Thank you. Go ahead, George.
From Egypt, Abram went up to the Negev with his wife and all that belonged to him, and Lot accompanied him. Now Abram was very rich in livestock, silver, and gold. From the Negev, he traveled by stages toward Bethel, to the place between Bethel and Ai, where his tent had formerly stood, the site where he had first built the altar, and there he invoked the Lord by name. Lot, who went with Abraham, also had flocks and herds and tents, so that the land could not support them if they stayed together. Their possessions were so great they could not dwell together. There were quarrels between the herdsmen of Abram's livestock and those of Lot. At this time, the Canaanites and the Perizzites were occupying the land. So Abram said to Lot, "Let there be no strife between you and me, or between your herdsmen and mine, for we are kinsmen. Is not the whole land at your disposal? Please separate from me. If you prefer the left, I will go to the right. If you prefer the right, I will go to the left."
Thank you, George. Linda?
Lot looked around and saw the whole plain of Jordan toward Zorah was well watered like the garden of the Lord, like the land of Egypt. This was before the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. So Lot chose for himself the whole plain of the Jordan and set out toward the east. The two men parted company. Abram lived in the land of Canaan, while Lot lived among the cities of the plain and pitched his tent near Sodom. Now the people of Sodom were wicked and were sinning greatly against the Lord. The Lord said to Abram, after Lot had parted from him, "Look around from where you are, to the north and to the south, to the east and the west. All the land that you see I will give you and your offspring forever. I will make your offspring like the dust of the earth, so that no one could count the dust. Then your offspring, and if anyone could count the dust, then your offspring could be counted. Go walk through the length and breadth of the land for I am giving it to you." So Abram went to live near the great trees of Mamre and at Haram. When he pitched his tents, there he built an altar to the Lord.
Thank you. Thanks
Abram.
to all of you. So now we are coming to the story of Abraham. We have seen Adam. We have seen Noah. We have seen Shem for a little bit, although he doesn't play as prominently as Noah. But now we are going to come to the main person who is the main forefather, both of Judaism and actually of Christianity, because we always have to remember we are descendants, for lack of a better word, of Judaism. Christianity came out of Judaism. Always remember, there's nowhere in the Bible that Jesus said he was a Christian, huh? But you know he's a Jew. And therefore, you will find that in your churches, if you read Eucharistic Prayer C, you will see that Abraham and Isaac and Jacob are mentioned in that prayer, Eucharistic Prayer C in our Book of Common Prayer. So we are now coming to the story of probably the greatest guy in the Old Testament, which is Abram, who became Abraham. And you see here that as we start his story, the first thing we realize is that you will see this whole saga, this great saga of Abraham, and you would also find that he too will have, a relationship with God. Although he's very obedient, it will be still, it is a unique relationship, but sometimes too, they will have their disagreements and their knocking of heads. But what you see starting off in the book, in the 12th chapter, is the first thing that God says to Abram is, "I need you to leave where you live. Your father is dead. There's no reason for you to stick around, and I want you to go." And you see, the Lord had said to Abram, "Go from your country, your people, and your father's household to the land I will show you." So that is the first thing that we see of Abraham's obedience to God, in that God tells him, I want you to go from where you are so familiar with, from people you know, your own father and your family, and I am taking you somewhere else. And as I said to the folks this morning, I said, I don't put myself in the league of Abraham whatsoever, but I do understand what it means to give up all you have and to go somewhere who you know no one at all. And I did that when I moved from Barbados to Illinois, where I got on a plane, Judith and I, we got on a plane and we went to this place that I had never, the first time I'd only seen is when I came for the site interview, and 2 months later I was on a plane coming back to the same place. And when I came the first time, I came on the last day of November into the beginning of December, and there was snow on the ground, totally white. And
Beautiful.
and I will tell you, the people I was going to have that interview with were all looking like you and not like me. And so I remember, and I told this story this morning, that I remember going, traveling with the chairperson, the chairman of the search committee. He was taking me on a 90-mile trip, and Susan will know when I talk about this, from
Yeah.
O'Fallon to Springfield, and for me to have a meeting with the bishop and back. So we're talking about 180 miles. You know how many times we will go
Of
up
cornfield.
Barbados in that amount of time? So,
That's the whole island.
I mean, the length of Barbados is 21 miles. So just imagine.
And the
so-
cornfields and the snow.
and all corn, well, at that time there weren't cornfields, there were just fields because there was nothing. And driving 90 miles back and forth, and all you're seeing is snow on the ground. You are in an environment where they're totally all white people. And I remember
"What
on
am
my
I
way back home, after coming back from the bishop, I said to myself, Lord, why the hell what am I doing here in white Illinois? And I will not tell you a lie. I felt a sting on my right side of my jaw as if someone had slapped me. And this voice said to me, I have sent you here for a reason. And that was it. And the rest is history. I was chosen unanimously by their search committee, and I spent 10 years in that parish.
Well, you made a difference there. You did.
and it was a wonderful, wonderful time. I cannot complain whatsoever at all. So
Well, we
that
miss
was
you.
my. What is that, Susan?
We miss you here.
Yeah, that was my Abraham leaving my family and everybody and coming to a place where I did not know not even one person at all. And so it is possible where you can go in faith and do God's work. And do God's work the same way Abraham was called. Anyone can be. So I go back to say here that you see the call of Abraham, and God tells him a number of things. For beginning in verse 2, I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse. And all peoples on earth will be blessed through you. You see that word bless, blessing all the time in in those few verses, in those two verses, verses 2 and 3, where you see God has called Abraham and he promises him a nation, that he will prosper, that he will be blessed, and Abraham and Abraham in verse 4, you will see he goes on and he does as the Lord told him. Yes, Susan.
Well, what did Abraham do to prove that he was so loyal to God and deserved this benefactor?
That is an interesting question. That is an interesting question. And the thing about it is, there is nowhere up to this point in time that we know about that Abraham did something phenomenal to cause him to be in that position. And it just goes to show that I mean, obviously there must be something about him that God saw.
Yeah.
There must have been some kind of faithfulness, some kind of person that God saw, that God felt that he can use him, that he would at least be obedient most of the time, at least, if not even all the time, but obedient enough to do what God wanted him to do. And so all we can say is here, Susan, is that God most likely saw something in him. He saw a faithfulness in him. He saw a genuineness in him that will cause him to want to do God's work. And so God chose him. It also sends the message to all of us, us here and anyone, that depending on the life we live, God calls us. And you don't have to do anything spectacular. I don't think Abraham did anything spectacular before this, but that God can call us once he sees that we have a relationship with him.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does now. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay. Yes, George.
I don't think Abraham did anything or was special in any way before God called him.
I agree. That's what I just said.
Okay.
No, that's what I just said. That's what I just said.
When you think of the other people, Moses, why did God call him?
Exactly. Exactly. And you
Peter,
are right.
why did God call him?
Right. That is what I just said. That there wasn't nothing special that he did at least up to this point in time that God called him. It could just be the fact that he felt that he was faithful, that he would be a faithful person, that he would probably be an obedient person. When you look at and that does not mean faithful and obedient doesn't mean that he's perfect. No, he will not be. For God knows Moses was not a perfect person. He killed somebody, for God's sake. So he was not perfect. The same way that Paul was not perfect. And yet God called him.
Yeah.
Okay.
Even when
Totally not
when
perfect.
God called Samuel was not perfect either.
So I'm saying to you is there are no perfect people in the Bible. None. Except Jesus.
We can be
There's none.
Right. That's what he said. Yeah.
But God can use us, or God can see something in us so that he can use us to do his work. And that's the long and short of it.
Yeah.
That is the long and short of it.
Good.
Let's see.
All right.
So I guess what it say. So yes, George, what you said is what I said. Maybe you didn't catch me when I said it, but that's what I was saying. Correct. So now in verse 4, you see, so Abraham went as the Lord had told him, and Lot went with him. And Abraham was 75 years old, and he set out for Haran, and he took his wife Sarai and his nephew Lot and all the possessions he had accumulated and the people and they had acquired in Haran, and they set out for the land of Canaan, and they arrived there. And one of the things I want you to realize, because sometimes people do not realize it, but the Hebrew people went to Canaan, the promised land, before in right now in terms of in Abraham's time. Lots of people think that they only went to Canaan, to the promised land, after they were in slavery in Egypt. that is not true. And you will see that Abraham will be in Canaan, the promised land, the land that God promises people. But eventually they will go out of it when it's famine in Egypt. And then they will come back after they were enslaved. You get what I'm saying there, everyone?
Yep.
Okay, so you see here, Abraham, God promises to bless Abraham, and God planned to develop a nation of people that he can call his own. And these are the people that will be referred to as God's chosen folks. Yes, Susan.
Well, if he goes into Canaan, does he go in and say, God sent me and I'm taking over? Or how does he say, okay, this is my land now?
God did that for him. God paved the way for him, I think. Well, you're not told, you're not told that he went into any land and told people, get out, that this is my land. But let's continue to see what happens, because we're going to touch on that today as well.
Okay.
Where is the land of Canaan? Where is that? Where is Canaan? Where is Canaan?
That's Israel.
Is it okay?
It was Canaan.
Canaan is Israel.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Yes, Canaan is Israel. Canaan is Israel. So let's move on. So he sets out with his wife and his nephew, whose father had died. He had some possessions and a few people, and they all came to this land called Canaan, which is the land God promised them. Now you will see here in verse 6 that Abram traveled through the land as far as the site of the great tree of Moreh at Shechem. And that is important, because we will see, before I say that, let me just say this, is that just recognize that God promises Abram mainly three things. He promised him a land, a nation. He promised him a whole set of descendants, which we read somewhere, I think. Am I correct? That will be like sand on the seashore. There will be that many. And God also offered him a blessing, a worldwide blessing, that his descendants will cover the earth. And so it was a blessing from God. So I just wanted to point out those specifically to you. But also I want you to recognize that this whole notion of this oak, this great tree of Moreh at Shechem, you will see this reappear again if you turn to Genesis chapter 35. Genesis chapter 35. And if you read this, you will see from verse 1, it reads, "Then God said to Jacob, go up to Bethel and settle there and build an altar there to God, who appeared to you when you were fleeing from your brother Esau. So Jacob said to his household and to all who were with him, get rid of the foreign gods you have with you, and purify yourselves and change your clothes. Then come, let us go to Bethel, where I will build an altar to God, who answered me in the day of my distress, and who has been with me wherever I have gone." So they gave Jacob all the foreign gods they had and the rings in their ears. So anyone with rings in their ears, make sure you hand them over. With rings in their ears, and Jacob buried them under the oak at Shechem. So you will see that here. You will see that Abraham comes to this oak, this tree at Moreh at Shechem, and it will later be the place where Jacob will be again, and where he will bury all foreign gods. And the reason why he will bury these foreign gods, because these foreign gods are like idols, and if they don't remove these idols from among them, remembering that now they're God's people, that it can ruin their faith and their relationship with God. So I just wanted to show you there how this whole notion of this tree or oak at Shechem, it will play its part in the story, in the book. And then you read, at that time the Canaanites were in the land. The Lord appeared to Abram and said, to your offspring I will give this land. So he built an altar there to the Lord who had appeared to him. And so there were people called the Canaanites before the Hebrew people arrived, the Jews arrived. There were people there who were called Canaanites, and and God said to Abram, this is the place, this is the land I'm going to give to you. So you realize that he arrives at where the land is. One of the things to point out here that is quite important is this whole word altar. And you will find that altars were used in many religions. It wasn't new to God's people. It was used in many religions. But for God's people, altars were more so places for sacrifice. They will sacrifice animals, and they would have built these altars out of stones and piled them up so that they could make their sacrifices on. So altars were a big thing. As you see, we have altars in the Episcopal Church and the Roman and the Orthodox and the Lutheran and all these churches, because altars were very much a part of the life of religious people. But also altars for the Hebrew people also symbolized their relationship with God, that they were in communion with God. And it also, every time you will see in the Bible people setting up altars to make sacrifices to God, whether it's in thanksgiving for something that has happened, some kind of blessing or what have you, or in commemoration of something, altars and sacrificing on altars. And when they're sacrificing animals, and so much so that incense was used to kill the smell of the sacrifice as well, which was the use of incense in those days. So I just want you to realize that altars play a big part, because they were seen as their way of thanking God for his blessings. And as I said to the group this morning, we don't have to go and build an altar in our house or outside in our backyard, but we should thank God for whatever blessings he gives to us all the time. And that is what the Hebrew people did. So you will find that they were regularly building altars. Even that piece just now from chapter 35 I read, Jacob was going to build an altar for the goodness that God had given to him. You'll see that repeatedly. And the altar can be seen as for worship. It can be seen as for prayer. It could be seen as in thanksgiving to God for what he's done for us. It could be seen as the blessings that God may have promised us. All these kinds of things merited building a sacrifice and sacrificing an animal in thanksgiving to God. You got me? Okay, good. So let's move on. And you see in verse 8, from there he went on toward the hills east of Bethel and pitched his tent with Bethel on the west and Ai on the east. And there he built an altar to the Lord and called on the name of the Lord. And then Abraham set out and continued toward the Negev. Now, the Hebrew word really Negev just means south, the south. So it means that Abraham set out and he continued toward the south, where you see there the Negev. Yes. So when we get to verse 10, you can see something that happened again that will happen later. And sometimes we only remember the one that happened later. We don't remember what happened now. Now here we see Abraham is going to go down to Egypt. So it is not, again, with his people, it's not the first time that the Hebrew people were in Egypt. We know about them when Jacob went, but here is it. You see them going with Abraham. And what's the reason they're going? The same reason they went in Jacob's time. There was a famine in the land. So you see, there's a famine here now in the land, as it will be a famine in the land later on in Genesis, where you will see them go again. So he went down to Egypt to live there for a while because the famine was severe. And as he was about to enter Egypt, he said to his wife Sarai, "I know what a beautiful woman you are. When the Egyptians see you, they will say, 'This is his wife.' And then they will kill me, but will let you live. Say you are my sister, so that I will be treated well for your sake, and my life will be spared because of you." So here, you see now some deception is going to go on here in this, because what you see is before they enter Egypt, Abram wants his wife to tell them that she's his sister. That was not a lie. She was his half-sister because they had the same father, believed in Terah. However, he didn't tell the rest of the story. It was like a half-truth, and it was like a deception, because in those days, if they knew it was his wife, they would have gotten rid of Abram and keep the wife. However, if they hear that it is his sister, even although they will want her to be their wife, they would have treated him very well. And you will see that he got treated. You saw when you read it just now. He got treated well in this passage. Yes, Linda.
Yeah, he got treated well, but his wife was sold into slavery. That kind of sucks. So she became the concubine of the Pharaoh. Did she have any say in this? No.
Well, the thing is,
she protected her husband. Yeah.
Yeah, but you see, the thing is, he was. I mean, you say that he took her as a concubine, but in those days he could have had many wives as he wanted, and so he was actually taking her to be his wife as well, instead of just being his concubine. But yes, but you will see here that obviously Abram and Sarai, they agree that she will be passed off as his sister. And you realize is that Abraham was acting out of fear, because he knew that if they found out that that she was his wife, they would have probably killed him.
They would have killed him, yeah.
They would have killed him. So to say that she was his sister, which was a half-sister, would have been fine. And it would have been acceptable, no doubt. I'm sure Abram wasn't the first person that would do that, or the last, where you would have had that. Because you have to remember, in those days as well, things like incest and all of that wasn't really like it is now. It wasn't, you know, you got to remember there weren't a whole lot to choose from as well, and so for people to choose from, so it was not a matter of committing incest, and to be besides, the commandments and the law never came up until they returned from Egypt and started settling in the land fully then. So that would have
I
been,
felt that was a very big deal for her to do that.
yeah,
To save him.
yeah.
Maybe it wasn't. Maybe she got nice dresses, jewelry. Who
She
knows?
lived in the castle.
Yeah.
She got waited on. She had servants and stuff like that. So maybe it was.
So when
something-
you get to verse 14, you see, when Abram came to Egypt, the Egyptians saw that Sarai was a very beautiful woman, and when Pharaoh's officials saw her, they praised her to Pharaoh, and she was taken into his palace, and he treated Abram well for her sake. And Abram acquired sheep and cattle and male and female donkeys and male and female servants and camels. No doubt by the time he leaves, at least he would have probably had a more comfortable ride going out from Egypt than when he went in, because he got a whole lot of stuff from the Pharaoh. But then when you get to but when you see verse 17 and to the end, you can see that the Lord inflicted serious diseases on Pharaoh and his household because of Abram's wife Sarai. And people wonder, well, why would God do that? I mean, he didn't know that it was Abram's wife. So why would God do that? And it could be a number of reasons, but I mean, one for sure probably would have been is that he, being an Egyptian, obviously not one of God's chosen people, he should not have been fraternizing with a Hebrew woman. And that would have been one of the causes for him being, and his household being treated the way they were treated, because he should have been with his own kind, for lack of a better word, with his own people, instead of fraternizing with Hebrew women. And so that could have been one of the reasons. I mean, folks this morning asked, well, why didn't Abram get punished? He deceived the guy. He didn't tell the full truth. He only told a half truth as to who Sarai really was. But personally, I think that the fact that Sarah was a Hebrew woman, that would have caused her to be off hands from from an Egyptian king, which I think is the reason why.
I had a question.
Go ahead.
Well, at the end, when it says, the Lord inflicted serious disease on Pharaoh because of Sarai. And then in the end, he didn't kill Abram, he let him go. So
yes, it is interesting you asked that question, because someone asked that similar question this morning. And,
Okay.
and the reason and folks felt, well, he should have killed him for deceiving him and all of that. But just think about it.
I am.
If you get diseases and your household get diseases for a woman that you didn't even know was a man's wife, that God punish you for this, you can imagine what you would do if you killed him.
Killed him, yeah.
You can imagine
Oh, yeah,
what
I
could
was very
happen
much
if
afraid
you
of that.
killed him.
Okay. Okay.
So you have to look at it
He was
in
afraid of him. Okay.
in that kind of context.
Okay.
That here is it. You get inflicted with disease, serious diseases. Your household gets inflicted with these diseases. Really and truly, you didn't really know that this woman was his wife, and yet this happened to you. Chances are you killed a man.
Oh.
You're probably
Yeah.
doomed for life.
Okay.
You
Not,
may-
not only did he send him away, he let him take all of his stuff that he got given him.
and,
Take
and
it
you can
off.
get
Yeah.
and you can get the feeling from it that Pharaoh just wanted to see the back of this man so that he can
Okay.
get it rid, so that once this man is gone and whatever he has is gone, probably God will take these diseases off of
Yeah.
him and he will be a well man again.
Okay.
That
Good.
is what you can
I'll
decipher
accept
out.
that. Okay.
Yeah, that is what
All right.
you can decipher out of that. The guy just wanted to see the back of this man so he could be well again
Be
and get
gone.
back his life.
Don't let the door hit you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good explanation. Okay.
So yes, that's what was going on. Good. You got the story. um So you will see here, what have you, the Pharaoh said, what have you done to me? He said, why didn't you tell me she was your wife? Why did you say she is my sister so that I took her to be my wife? Now then, here is your wife. I can hear him. He's like, he's taking it saying, oh, here's your wife. Take her and go. And then Pharaoh gave orders about Abram to his men, and they sent him on his way with his wife and everything he had. So yes. Any questions on that chapter?
Nope.
I was looking to see if there was anything else I wanted to touch on, as far as that is concerned. And another thing is, and I think what happened also is too, another thing that just came to my mind is that remember that Abraham had already been ordained to be the father of many nations. So he can kill them. God would not have allowed that to happen because God already said to him, I will bless you with many nations. For that to happen, there's no way that the Pharaoh could have killed Abraham. Coupled with the fact is as well, is that even with Sarai, remember, she's supposed to be the mother of the many nations. It is through her that those nations will be birthed, will be formed. And therefore, one of the reasons why I think too that God created these diseases on Pharaoh and his family is for him to recognize that this woman is a holy woman. This woman is going to be the mother of many nations. And this woman, we can't have you, Pharaoh, mucking it up. And therefore, you know, he causes this to happen to him so that he will think twice about doing anything again. So, all right, let's move on to chapter 13. What time is it? Oh, 6:50. I think we'll handle it. We can get it. Now you see the whole notion of Abraham and Lot, his nephew, and this chapter is a very interesting chapter, and it's a chapter that I will say to you that it sets out an example of how we should deal with our families when we are faced with decisions and challenges. Now, here is it. You see, Abraham went up from Egypt to the Negev, which is the south, with his wife and everything he had, and Lot went with him. And then you hear in verse 2 of chapter 30 that Abraham had become very wealthy in livestock and in silver and gold. So you could tell the Pharaoh really started him off really well, that he became a very wealthy man. And then you see from the south, from the Negev, he went from place to place until he came to Bethel. He's back up in that vicinity of Bethel again, where he first pitched an altar, to the place between Bethel and Ai, where his tent had been earlier, and where he had first built an altar. There, Abram called on the name of the Lord. And so you see him now having great wealth, and seem to be having great a great variety or of things, of possessions, and you can tell that his wealth was growing. But now when you get to verse 5, you see something is happening between him and Lot. There is a conflict that is brewing. There is this potential conflict, this potential trouble that is happening. And you see Lot, now Lot who was moving about with Abram, also had flocks and herds and tents, but the land could not support them while they stayed together, for their possessions were so great that they were not able to stay together. And quarreling arose between Abram's herders and Lot's. The Canaanites and the Perizzites were also living in the land at that time. So both these men are becoming wealthier. Their livestock is getting bigger, and they have come to a realization that we are going to have problems on sharing this land together. And therefore, they decided that they need to do something about it. And not to mention, there were still Canaanites and Perizzites, two other nations, you could rather say, who were still also living on the land at that time. So it was becoming really crowded, really, really difficult to do. And here you see then the people who work for Abram and for Lot, the herders, they're starting to quarrel about obviously the amount of space each person's cattle and livestock is taken. So Abram, in verse 8, so Abram said to Lot, "Let's not have any quarreling between you and me, or between your herders and mine, for we are close relatives. Is not the whole land before you? Let's part company. If you go to the left, I'll go to the right. If you go to the right, I will go to the left." Note that. Here you see the older uncle allows the younger nephew to choose whatever he wants. And whatever he wants, he will take the other part. He doesn't go there and say, "I want this, so you will have that." He says to the nephew, "Take what you want. Which part of the land you want, you take it, and I will go the other." He gives him first choice. He gives him first priority. And that is interesting to note, because what you see here is a notion of goodwill taking place between families. Not to mention, by spreading themselves out, it also brings about goodwill with the other people who are still living on that land, the Canaanites and the Perizzites, because what they're doing is giving each other space to be able to be free and to be themselves. But what is most important is how Abram approaches Lot in this process by saying to him, "We are not going to quarrel. We're not going to argue. There's no need for any disagreements about this." And how Abraham took it was based on love instead of based on self. He was not looking at himself. He was looking at preserving a good relationship with his nephew. And so you see then in that verse, those two verses, what he decided to do. Now look at Lot on the other hand. Lot is a different character, because Lot is given the effusion, the opportunity, to choose what he wants. You don't hear Lot say, "Well, uncle, you're the old man, you take what you want and I could take the rest. Don't worry about that." You don't hear any discussion like that at all. All you see is that Lot looked around saw the whole land of the plain of the Jordan towards Zoar was well watered, like the garden of the Lord, Eden, like the land of Egypt. This was before the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. So Lot chose for himself the whole plain of the Jordan and set out toward the east. Lot chose the best part of the land. That's all what, or so he thought. But that where he chose the one that had the best water, and that obviously his livestock will be good, and the place you could tell it looked, since it's well watered, it must be really luscious green. It is likened to the garden of the Lord, to the land of Egypt, and all this good stuff. So you could tell that Lot chose the better piece of land. And you see the two men parted company, and Abram lived in the land of Canaan. While Lot lived among the cities of the plain and pitched his tents near Sodom. Now, he didn't know about Sodom. He did not realize what kind of people lived in Sodom. And then you can see in verse 13, now the people of Sodom were wicked and were sinning greatly against the Lord. And that is not what he did not realize. He was signing up himself for that. In verse 14, the Lord said to Abram after Lot had parted from him, look around from where you are to the north and south, to the east and west. All the land that you see I will give to you and your offspring forever. I will make your offspring like the dust of the earth, so that it is, if anyone can count the dust, then your offspring could be counted. So walk through the length and breadth of the land, for I am giving it to you. So here, Lot goes his way, but didn't realize, he failed to recognize that Sodom could bring about a lot of temptations for him and his family, and put them in a very sinful circumstances. He thought, he chose a better land, but it had its consequences to it, which would be the people of Sodom. And as we know the story, and we will learn later on, he had to flee the land. He lost his wife. And then what happens? He returns to Abraham, the man with the worst piece of land. So it tells us, when we think that we are running, that we are trying to get the best for ourselves at the expense of others, we may end up with the worst.
Yeah, I guess we are going to end up with the worst.
God has a real good sense of humor, doesn't he?
Oh, yes, he does, Father.
A very good sense of humor, because here is it. Your uncle gave you the opportunity to choose what you want. You didn't think anything about him to say to him, well, uncle, you're older, it's best that you choose what you want first, and I can handle it. Nothing so. Or, you will look and you'll say, oh, that looks, it's like you put two nice chops, lamb chops or prime rib on a plate, and the father looks at the son and say, which one of these do you want? And the son goes for the biggest and the best, and leave the father to eat leave the crappy one, and then after he eats it, he has to go to the bathroom. So here, always remember.
Eating the biggest one gave him an upset stomach and sent him to the toilet. So eating the biggest one not such a good idea.
So always remember, choosing the best does not mean that it will always be the best.
Say, we were taught you cut it in half and let the other person choose which half they want. That way.
But okay.
Lot didn't do that.
Yeah. So you need to you need to recognize, like when you're dealing with your own families and you're going to be fighting over stuff, it is best to step aside, as painful as it might be, Sometimes it's best to step aside. You want it, have it. And you will realize sometimes by doing that, you end up being the one that is even more blessed than that other person, because you may not see it, you can't see it, but God can see it, and God will reveal it eventually. And no one can say that you give them the worst. You give them, they got the best, and this is the result. So
Well, God rewarded Abraham for being so
God rewarded Abraham.
generous and
God rewarded Abraham. So
Mhm.
I just wanted to share that because I thought I saw that message in there is so powerful when it comes to the challenges of having to deal with family, that this is a wonderful way to see it and to deal with family, especially when this kinds of things happen when people die, your parents die, and children are fighting over property and all
Yeah.
that sort of stuff. And I've witnessed this in my ministry. And sometimes I've had to say to people, just remember, this was your parents' property, and where are they now? And then I will say, it will happen to you too. So you fight, you're fighting over this, but you're going to have to go along and leave it. You're not going to have it forever.
When our parents died, there were 7 children,
Mhm.
and we all came together and cleaned out our parents' house. There was
Mhm.
not a cross word. There was not an argument.
Mhm.
If somebody said they wanted something, we
They
all
had it.
agreed they should have it. And there was
Yes.
not there, to this day, there's never been any hard feelings, and that was
Yeah.
30 years ago. So
Yeah.
we all 7 of us came together and said,
we got to choose 2 things out of the house that we really wanted,
Yeah.
and that was it. So we were happy. I mean, we were, but
Yeah, it is. I mean, knock wood, class hands in prayer. I believe it will be the same with my brothers, because one thing our parents taught us, and these were their words, and I quote, mother has, father has, bless the child that has its own. End of quote.
right.
My parents always taught us, you need to get your own. We got ours, you need to get yours.
Yeah.
When we die and there's something left, then you will share it equally among yourselves.
Yeah.
And if we die and there's nothing else left, you will share that
Good
among
luck.
yourselves.
Yeah. Money doesn't buy love.
That is what our parents taught us.
Right.
That is
Right.
what our parents taught us. And that is what we have set out to do.
Yeah. It doesn't buy love from your family. Just
And
to-
Nope, don't buy love from your family.
yeah.
Yeah.
So always remember those kinds of things. And it doesn't, I have watched too many families tore each other apart. I mean, literally tear each other apart because of what they want and they didn't want others to
Well,
have.
we always feel our parents are smiling down because we, how the family is together and how we act and
Correct. And that is what is important. That is what
we
is
share.
important.
So, well, at the end too, Abraham went and he built an altar. So
So he
he,
built another altar.
he-
Yes,
he-
it says here. So
he was-
Abraham, he went to live near the great trees of Mamre at Hebron, where he pitched his tents, and there he built an altar to the Lord.
so he gave thanks for what he had.
Thank you, Jesus, for what you've given. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, God, for what you've given me.
Always.
All right. Good night, everyone.
Go ahead, Bryce. Bye-bye, Bryce. So, but yes, so that is how, that is how you should live your life. That's how
great.
you should live your life.
Exactly.
Next week, we will look at chapters 14 and 15. So read those chapters, 14 and 15, as we go through it, and as we learn a little bit more about Abraham. You'll come to realize that Abraham at the end had to come and rescue poor Lot, his nephew. So,
Oh, boy.
So again, show
Sounds
and
exciting,
you
kinda like
learn
a soap
another
opera.
lesson,
Yeah.
and you learn another lesson from
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
that you still have to suck it all in and you do the right thing, which
Kinda
is
like-
to love, to love, to
Mm.
love. So-
And forgive, right.
and forgive. Correct.
And forgive.
And forgive. Correct.
Amen.
All right,
Amen.
amen. Have a good night, everyone. Good to see you all. Maureen, I hope I'll see more of you at some point. You come back.
No, I'm up in Cape.
No,
Cod.
no. I don't mean here. I know you're not coming
Yeah.
back here. I mean
No,
on
but-
this forum.
Church with you. I do this with you. No, I do
Yes.
every Sunday with you.
Yes. Oh, wonderful. 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 And we miss you, Maureen. I miss you from the 8 o'clock service because you used to be one of the first back here. In fact, if my mind serves me correctly, you used to be back here the first at one time. You used to be back very early.
Right.
Yes. So, but you take care of yourself and it's lovely to see you.
Good to see you too, Father.
Okay. Good to
Uh,
see everyone. Good to see
good
everyone.
evening.
Have a good night. Okay.
Okay.
Wait a minute,
Bye.
before you close off, are you in town now, Susan?
No,
Linda's with me.
I'm with her.
She's
Oh,
in
you are up in
Bloomington.
Illinois now with her. Okay.
Right.
Yeah, but I will not, next Wednesday, I'll be back in Liverpool, Syracuse, so.
She's
Okay.